now able to practice what she's going to pitch on Tuesday.
For each alternate row in the corner, you want the smaller sandbags. And it all gets bashed in with a pick handle or a, Dennis here said a shovel handle. To make them all pack in. And it'll all settle down and make it watertight.
And how can we make it even more watertight?
You can use plastic sheeting. Plastic.
Yeah. So you don't have plastic sheeting?
You can use nylon chalk bags.
Mm-hmm.
Tarps.
Tarps, yeah.
To
Basically,
do that,
that'll do.
you tuck it in
And fold it back.
and fold it back. And then just second top row, fold it over and then put your top row on to hold it down.
Very good.
Daylight came on. That's that. Where the tunnel blows up and they go to rescue.
Ah, confined rescue.
Hey?
Confined rescue.
Very confined.
Didn't even know it was on.
No, I got a couple in the
I got handed another cold sleep. Nice to see.
Hey, Bob.
Went to let them walk up. The 11th switch, I remember one thing about it, yeah.
Here we have a piece of rope, and this piece of rope was not used in the incident that I'm about to describe, so you can rest assured it's quite safe. When you are working with bits of rope, what's one of the things you should do with the end of the rope? Put some sort of stopper knot in, okay? I find that a half fisherman's probably is the best one, because a thumb knot does have a tendency to come undone. And there was a chappie recently, about 2.5 years ago, was cleaning windows at Russell offices, the army buildings there. And he's coming down, and they were using stop descenders, plus, and are we familiar with what a stop descender is? Press the handle in, you go down, let the handle out, you stop. Okay? Do whatever you do and move on. They also had, on a cow's tail, a mechanical ascender to a second rope. Right? So it's pretty much a fail-safe system. The other thing that they also did was they put stopper knots in the ends of their ropes, so that if you got to the end of the rope or was too short for the building or whatever, you didn't abseil off the end. What this guy did was he was in a hurry, pushed the envelope a little bit, couldn't be bothered hooking up his ascender because that was slowing him down too much. Thought somebody else had put the stopper knot in the end of the rope and is merrily working away and had not checked which rope actually reached the ground. So as he was working down, letting himself down, working, letting himself down, working, he, 2 floors up, suddenly discovered that he ran out of rope and head-butted the ground, put his stop descender, which was attached to his chest harness, through the handle, hit his jaw and tracked up his jaw and basically ripped the side of his face open, but it hit his jaw rather than his jugular, so he was lucky. And he got carried away from the incident alive with broken pelvis, shattered legs, a broken jaw with a huge gash up the side here, and having lost about 2 litres of blood. Okay. Simply because he didn't stop to take the time to check all his safety stuff, and because he wanted to get the job done as quick as possible so he could move on to the next job, because the quicker they did the jobs, the more money they got. So the moral of this story is, take time and think safety. And today, we need to think safety all the time, and everybody needs to be looking after everybody else. Okay?
In other words, work as a team.
Work as a team, but I would strongly recommend that one person who is not going to be climbing up on the roof, who may be a person that is vertically challenged, is nominated as a safety officer, going around saying, why have you done that? What's that for? Have you, I need to check this. Not everybody needs to be a rabbit up the roof. And you need to identify within your units those people doing the storm damage that are not keen at working at heights. They're the people that should not be trained extensively on roof work. They should be trained extensively on everything but actually getting on the roof, so that they are wandering around safely, so that when you go to a job, you know that Freddie Bloggs is always going to be on the ground because he doesn't like being up in the air, but you know because he's on the ground or she's on the ground that they'll make sure everything's checked. And sometimes you need someone who's a bit of an old woman. And I hate to say it, but we do need these sort of people occasionally.
Good, got you on tape saying that.
Why?
You need old women in the unit.
No, I was describing a type of person. You're a bit of an old woman. At times. Shut him up. He does not have a response.
But first for everything. Greg Ruth's response, oh good, I found employment.
You are absolutely gobsmacked. Huh. One for me. He's going to spend the rest of the day working on a comeback.
He's going to walk off the roof going, fuck.
So we're waiting for your comeback, Greg.
Oh, just have to get you to clarify what you mean. Why an old woman?
I got you worried there. Never mind. It's always fun. People take the mickey out of me all the time, so I don't know why you're an old woman. You've got no features that classify you as an old woman to me at the moment. What I want to do over this next session, and this session will extend to after lunch, so we'll just have regular breaks and so on. I want to basically go through equipment, and we've already started looking at different bits of equipment. I want to have an extensive look at anchors, because I think we really need to look at anchors extensively.
Should have told me, I would have brought that photo down for you.
That's all right. I'm sure people can imagine what it looked like, and we can always re-simulate the anchor. monitoring system because
Anchors were a real challenge in the Sydney Heartstorm.
they are.
Yeah, well, that's where this
And that's
one was.
that's why I want to talk about it, because anchors will quite generally be a challenge. Talk about how we get a rope over a roof without killing people.
or breaking windows next door.
Yes, or breaking windows next door. And we'll probably talk very briefly about tarping and temporary repairs, okay? Because I don't think that's something that we need to get into in great detail, because I think just about everybody here's done many hours of tarping and temporary repairs. And I think we'll get a lot more benefit out of putting our collective brains together in tackling those issues, because before we can get to tarping and temporary repairs, we need to actually be able to get the people on the roof and get them on the roof safely. And roofs are always going to be a challenge, and you'll always need some sacrificial little monkey-like mat over here to put over the roof.
You've been talking to Greg, haven't you?
Better to be an old woman than a monkey.
Good one. He's been working on it.
He's been listening to you very intently.
Okay,
Steve.
Steve, before we go up, I've got one problem. It's not getting up the roof's my problem, getting back on the ladder
Getting back on the ladder.
is my problem.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that, because
That is not
We
an
just won't use the ladder.
uncommon problem.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, no, there
I,
is-
I can get up there, I can do the job, okay? It's that getting down that first couple of steps on the ladder. Once I'm on the ladder securely, I'm right.
and that comes down to securing ladders and how we put the ladders up there, right? And we need to talk about that, because we do have a tendency to put the top rung of the ladder at the gutter, and we should have about 2 or 3 rungs above the gutter,
Yeah.
so that you can put your hand actually onto the ladder.
I know how to do it, it's just
Step
that
round.
I've got a fear of getting that close to the edge.
That's fine, because that's where you start on your rope to start climbing down. And we'll talk
That's
about
right,
that.
stay
We'll have
hooked
a
up
photo.
until you're on
Well, that's what I did last
You can
time.
stay hooked up until
The
you're on
ladder's
the
moving too
ground.
much and I end up
If-
just putting,
if you're-
attaching myself to the line and going down.
If you're using things like mechanical ascenders and so on, you can be halfway down the ladder before you can start and clip, if you've made your ropes long enough.
Yeah.
You just got a good survival instinct, unlike the rest of us. You know what's dangerous.
Which is good, yes. I don't like going near the edges, especially some of those flats in Sydney. They're a
Like,
bit
the
scary.
problem with the line, I mean, I'll go right up to the edge of the roof, I've got no problem with it. It's just, as I said, I'm just getting onto that ladder.
Yeah.
That's
Step
not an
over.
uncommon
No,
problem, though.
that's
No, but I've got to have it making everyone aware of it,
It's a bloody good habit,
so
that.
that they know that I do have
Yeah,
that
but-
problem.
That's right.
Well, that's the thing.
That's fine, because you know that, and everybody knows that you'll get around that anyway. So it's just a matter of a bit more time, and it might mean there's somebody else coming over and holding the ladder. But we should be footing the ladders before we climb back down onto them anyway. Okay, let's talk about equipment. Let's start with PPE. Let's go around the room and see what people think we should be taking up the roof with us.
Well, from yesterday, you've done what volleys.
Unlike volleys would be handy, yes, because they've got a little bit more grip than those. Yep.
Helmet?
Helmet. Now, is a helmet a hindrance or a hazard up there? Do we see roof tilers wearing helmets?
No.
No. What's the purpose of us wearing a helmet on a roof?
Potential fitness on the head.
What? Bird poop.
Yeah?
Yeah, but like, if you're going up and down.
Going up and down, because things can fall from the roof onto you. Also, if you fall
Gives you a bit of
from the
protection.
roof, it gives you some protection, I suppose, against banging into it.
Especially if you got clipped up, I've seen some go up there and not have it clipped up. To me, that's useless.
That's correct, an unclipped helmet is useless. Okay, but there are many uses, and the helmet is very useful. And probably one of the greatest uses, to start with, is a psychological use. Because when you've got your helmet on there, what's one thing you're not as concerned about is your head. Right? And you will find there's lots of things. This roof up here is a classic one, what a roof is not like. But there are heaps of roofs around. The other thing is, what it does is if you're working around and there's power lines and so on floating around as well, or tree branches or something, you will hear or feel it on your helmet before you actually touch it with your body, and better that something like that's touching it
And hopefully
than
they're
your
not
body.
conductive.
Well, hopefully they're non-conductive, and the new helmets, of which this is actually one of the old ones, are supposed to have been improved in their conductivity. This one had a piece of tape put on it to try and fix the problem. Anybody got a brand spanking new one?
Oh, the metal clips on the front of the rivets. That's what got myself. There you go. Clips on the front.
This was for everybody's new and shiny helmet. There was concern expressed about it. Now you look at the size of the clips to the rest of the helmet and how they're positioned, and the fact that they're not actually touching anything that's conductive. And I don't think it's really a problem. What? If something touched there and arced through your brain, yeah, that would be quite amusing.
Well, the inside webbing is supposed to keep the outside shell clear of your head anyway.
That's exactly right. Do we know what this clip's for? No? Do we know what that clip's there?
It's for your sun visor thing for the back of your neck.
No?
No.
Do you know what that clip's there? It's a piece of ancient technology.
That's for the old miners.
The old miners' light.
Just like the pad used to come around here, through there, and run down your back onto a battery gun.
That's
I can
right.
get one if you want. I can go
We
get
don't
one.
want one, right? It just interests me that a helmet this modern actually has those on it, when they would have been better off putting the 4 little clips like that, the petrol ones, so that we could actually put our headlamps on it. So it's just an interesting design flaw that I see in the helmet, that they haven't updated something for a long time. Other things, what are other things that you need to have as part of your PPE? Childproof locks on them.
No one doesn't. That's a non-childproof lock light. We've got no children, so it doesn't matter.
That's right, I'm supposed to be the only child here.
You know they
Okay.
use SES when non-child.
I'm told if you lick your fingers, it's okay.
Doesn't burn as much.
No, you lick things after that.
Yeah.
You're always lovely aromatic.
trick.
Before you do anything more,
They lick your fingers off.
now that we've
Bit
done
on it, you
two,
got this real-
what's the difference between the two?
One's been done on the gas stove and one's been done on the lighter. And the lighter was sooty.
That's right, so you're actually better off doing it through a gas flame if you can, because it's cleaner.
There's no other trick.
Yeah?
You feed a knife up on the gas stove, and I
Yeah,
butter
and then use it like a
just
hot
rub
knife.
it through.
Yeah. The other trick is to go and spend $80, $90 and buy yourself a hot knife.
No, this is a hot. This is an old butter
I
knife.
think we just talked nice into jerky with some water and never load a rope one day.
Just get a,
Joe would probably do that for you.
just get a hot butter knife.
We just run up to we bring him anything, yeah.
I'll
Just heat it up.
Just head over the stove, just put on a bit of wood, and just drop it through it.
In fact,
Nice.
maybe I should try and borrow the search and rescue one for the next weekend.
Which is seal the end of it as well.
There's a nice furry rope sticking
That's
around.
right, that's how I cut tapes and lots of things like that.
Okay, that cleans it off nicely, seals them down.
Have you got any of those harnesses here, the ones that,
There you go.
what's your brand name now? Came in with the store kits, the latest ones, and the
Yeah,
big
cool.
buckle.
What's that?
The ones that have got just a buckle.
One buckle,
The one buckle one.
and you've got to wrap it all around your body.
No, it just goes in and it's super just, the ovary and the buckle go through and it locks back on, so that's the one thing.
Oh,
Yeah, where can
I've seen them before.
I'm just trying to, I can't remember the name of it, I've got a complete blank.
I don't like them.
What? Keep people amused for hours.
Well, but yeah, yeah. When we were making all through good things.
Improvised hammer.
actually get rid of destroying?
Using a pin. Was that one of your carabins? There's a pin.
No, it wasn't one of his caravans.
It was a design to be
Oh,
smashed
right,
around.
thanks, yeah.
That was one of mine.
These lovely things.
Yeah.
It's more than you get.
Come back here. Kept too wide.
nail stitching. Really, really big hand where it's always any depth on
You bet English soccer fan?
We have both in Newcastle.
Oh, there's an English soccer fan. They found him after all these soccer rights in Germany, lying unconscious in the stadium, on the stadium.
Natural fibre.
This was after they had this really big riot.
Yeah.
And they were baffled because he was unconscious. They couldn't see anything obvious about him first
But
up.
that's not all
They took him-
nail.
Yeah, well, you just do a second stack across the top.
Can Shell said do that, or?
No. Well, they actually also clip in there.
Oh, at least they clipped into the right part.
That's right. The question that...
Well, it looks
What's
as...
the safe working load of the harness?
Well, there's the first question. But you look at the webbing of the harness compared to the webbing of the slings, and the seat webbing is pretty much the same.
It was a hell of a mess, though.
It was a lot messier than that. That's pretty neat. But the question you've got to ask is, where's your single point of failure here, and is this designed to do that sort of thing?
Well, it's designed to take a single person's weight, not...
Take, but it's a rating of the buckle we've got to start questioning.
Right.
But it's also the use of the thing. In roping, you try and use what's designed for use, you use for that use, because it probably will fail if it's used for something different. So my suggestion is that will hold for a period of time, and then it has a possibility of failing, because it's not designed for that sort of thing.
Actually, is the weakest point the buckle or the stitching on the buckle?
Well, I'd say the stitching on the buckle is probably not, because if you look at the amount of stitching there, there's almost more stitching there than there is on one of those.
Right.
Okay. So that's just a thought. Trying to analyse the system or train your safety officer, whoever that is, to look for the single point of failure. Now, anchor points. Is this a good anchor point? This pole. Is it a good anchor point?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What about above, up here? That's good.
Less good.
Less good? Yeah. Okay. What's one of the problems you got with the pole? It's to anchor off to. Right? We just had a query about welds, didn't we? And we weren't happy with the welds over there. So why are we happy with... Right? And how many bolts are holding this bull bar on?
Two.
There's two. And there should be four.
Surely four, otherwise we'll do this.
Yeah, no, there's 4 down there.
Right, there's 4 bolts on there, but at what point do those bolts shear out?
They're a high tension valve.
They're designed to body shear on impact.
That's
It's
right.
the mechanic, they're a high tensile valve.
They won't snap.
Chassis will hit first.
Oh,
Rip the holes in the chassis before you...
My understanding is it's a high tensile bolt on impact. They're designed to shear, so the impact's taken by the bar, not the...
No, the fine with the bull bar, if you have an accident with the bull bar, the mechanic point, you find the chassis holes will rip out first before the bolts.
well, my understanding was the same as Matt. But once again, there's still only 4 bolts there to this thing that's bolted on here. What's the other thing you've got round here?
I've used the other end of the car.
I'd use the
The
chassis.
winch.
No, the chassis. What's the advantage of using the chassis?
Well, it's integral to the car.
That's right, it's not going to go anywhere.
That's what I was saying. I'd have used the tow bar, because the tow bar, as Willie pointed out, is designed to take weight.
No, but what's the problem with the tow bar? Well, the tow bars do have ratings on them,
Yep.
whereas these don't, okay?
That's right.
But what's the rating of the standard tow bar?
1,250 kilos.
1,200
The one on the back of my car is 2.1 tonnes, and the one on the back of this one is the same, I think.
And what's the rating of your rope?
3.
3,000.
3,000. Okay. Now, is that a safe working load? Is that the rating? Or is that a braking strain? Okay. So it's a safe working load. So 1,250 is a safe working load. And what's the safe working load of the rope?
375.
375 or 400, let's say, for the 13 mil. It's actually 425 or something, 480 or some funny figure like that. So a tow bar is
Yeah,
probably a
people
better option than a bull bar because bull bars have no ratings and bull bars are actually designed to fall off. That's the design of a bull bar, to prevent a certain amount of damage but to fall off at some point. Okay? Is the winch bolted to the bull bar or to the chassis?
Bull bar.
Bull bar, which actually is a problem. And most really good winches I've come across are actually bolted onto the chassis. Okay? Because you can actually pull off. If you
bull bar off.
You can. And I've seen it
well,
happen.
I've seen
If you lock it on the back of your car so that it's not... Okay? The Land Cruisers are great because you've got these big rails that come right out the front and you just wrap them up, cut them up and attach. The other thing you've got to think about is when you're using one of these as an anchor point, is how do you position the vehicle to use as an anchor point?
At 90 degrees.
90 degrees is good. Okay? So you could actually use the front and the back and you could bring it down so you could have two anchor points off one thing. So we decided that, okay, not the tow ball, you want to use the crossbar. And you're probably better off if you're not towing anything and you don't want people to just go and hook it on there, take that off, and then you can say, anchor up to the tow bar, they'll come back and go, oh, there's no tow ball there. And you can say, well, I was talking about the bar, not the ball.
Also, taking the gooseneck off and leaving it in the back of the vehicle saves shins.
Yeah, don't forget where you got that from.
Walking away with it, like what happened to the courier, remember?
I got stolen, did it?
Yeah.
When the courier's gearbox went.
Well, it dropped the gearbox.
In the shop
Oh,
in Sydney.
Yes.
Got it back without the gooseneck on.
Yeah, well, you're supposed to take all those off. And
Well,
shackles
everything
before you
else
put
was
them into
taken off,
mechanic.
but the gooseneck.
Huh? Well, some places, right?
Yeah, the Ford dealer.
Some towns you've got to make sure you've got them all out of your vehicle.
Whereabouts, Colin?
Go into...
Sydney.
You want back out of it? Okay. And the other thing is sometimes they get taken out of mechanic shops and they just forget to put them back in. And you go back there and they've got six sitting in the corner because they've been taking them out so they didn't keep plunking their shins on them. And they go,
I mean,
oh,
in that
sorry.
situation, they should take it out and stick them in the vehicle. Yeah, that's
Broken
why I
already.
said that it's good to look at. I was wondering if someone had picked it up.
It's, that's vibration probably. But,
No, that's
can you use this, the front of this car as anchor point?
I wouldn't actually use the bull bar, but I'd use the tow.
Yeah, well, why don't you like the Land Cruisers and so on? They've got these rails that stick right out. And I've got the old Captain's Flat Land Cruiser and the bull bar's like out here. So you've got heaps of railing and steel and chassis to play with.
Not one of these.
You've actually this vehicle.
Rear axle.
Willie?
What's this?
Main rail. Rail's gone out there. Full number of anchor points on it. Just write SES anchor point system on the vehicle. And it's all chassis is what you're attaching to.
Whereas something like a
Yeah,
car,
well, I
you
mean,
have to go almost right way round it.
Just about. Or do
That's
a
what
lot
I
of
was
crawling
looking at.
underneath it. And the other thing, problem you've got with cars like this, and a lot of the more new passenger type vehicles, is once you start tensioning, Pajero, there you've actually got a couple hanging down the front of, which you can just drop it. Yeah. The only hazard you've got with, and that's the same problem with the Pajero, is how they're attached to the chassis is concealed.
Yeah.
Right, now you being a mechanic will be able to say, oh, but it's bolted on with these and welded on or whatever.
But I wouldn't have a clue.
That's right, and because I can't see how it fits together, a question mark arises in my brain, and if a question mark arises in my brain, I'm then looking for an extra anchor point. Now what about these poles over here with concrete in them?
No. No good.
Why are they no good?
Because they're not very securely in the ground. They're only there to stop people from running into the street through them. They give you a bit of warning.
They do not pass the shake test. Okay? One of the things for anchor points is a shake test. And the thing's got to be able to not move. And if I shake that
pull that out of the ground
enough, it'll come out. Right. So that fails the shake test. Right. The other is a kick test. If you kick it really hard and your foot hurts afterwards and it hasn't moved, then it's possibly okay.
I prefer the shake test.
I do too. It's less painful. Okay.
Especially when you're wearing...
Yeah. I mean, these are only
feet
here
too.
to give you warning before you hit the building.
Well, what about poles?
Not that one.
Pass the shake test?
No.
Okay, well, let's start finding some anchor points. We want to work on this roof section here. Let's start looking for some anchor points without vehicles at this stage. Not vehicle anchors. Yeah? You're going to have to run up the roller door?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that looks like it's passing the shake test. What's the problem if you want to work out here though?
It's in the corner. The other one, then grab one of those railway sleepers around the corner, bring it inside the door, come off the door, open it.
Yeah. We've got a gate here.
Yeah. There's nothing on the other side of the fence.
Yes,
You could
so,
Bring
yes.
What do you got?
You've got the flashy flagpoles at the front. We're the rest of anchor points out here, aren't we?
That big tree across the road, except someone had run into it.
Yeah, block the road off.
Across the road.
Cars,
parking trucks.
Well, you're selling all your gear while you're not looking. Yeah, well, that happens everywhere. Yeah, through the window, see?
What about these ones out the front compared to the back? Do they work?
Oh, just in the wrong place and the wrong...
How do you think you'd stop the rope running, the anchor system running up?
Got to tie a rope around it, the other one, and
Yeah.
sort of open.
Lash it. Figure eight it, that's the only way, and lash it is the only way I can think we should do it.
But then you're relying on the friction on the pole.
Well, you're going to be, and I'll show you, you're often relying on the friction on the pole anyway. And there's a particular way you can tie your tape to increase it. You've got the fire hydrant there.
I'll tell you what though, you have fun right now, because they're moist and slippery.
Yes, that's right. So you have to dry. But you've got, once going to do this.
Yeah, well if you open the door and use the filler, you've got things you can use to actually pop the rope tighten up if you want to.
Sledgehammer a hole in the wall, plate on the other side.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Not supposed to.
Well, that's what we've already filled that up.
The water will go straight through if you do that.
That's actually what I think with the wheels on. No, with the wheels on, they're more fun to ride down hill slopes.
Then back all the way up.
They got that free auto bin to put them for a ceiling.
Yeah.
The wheels off. What's this for? Oh, the wheels off, they won't move if you load it. A bit of weight in them, mate.
It's a counterweight. As you go off the roof, it slows you down.
So you survive the impact and go, oh, thank God, and then you see an auto bin falling out of the roof.
So, putting a fall arrest system on this roof is quite difficult, isn't it? without using vehicles as a bank spot. And that's what I want to see happen. I want a full arrest system on that route without using vehicles as a bank spot.
Which area do you want to be able to work on the whole route?
Just this area in the back. I want you to stretch the brain.
Somebody want to come around with me and grab a railway, please?
Door.
Well,
inside of the right from the other side.
Yeah. Because using vehicles. So let's went diagonal across the other side. Well, that's the other problem we've got is crushing the guttering. How are we going to prevent crushing the guttering?
Cut the blocks in.
throw the gutter.
Okay, well, we're saying I would.
Get some blocks.
Let's do it. Let's do it, right? We've got plenty of systems in there. Let's just use the Bungendore system and just use one system and not use the young system, because if we just use yours, then we know that there's only one set of gear that we've...
Do you want to bring it out here? Outside here? We use the base of the fire extinguisher down there. Stop your rope riding up.
Can we do this one first? And how can you do it here?
That was the hang on. With that one, yeah, do it. That'll miss the light too.
Okay. Primary, secondary, we can miss the light, yeah. No, if it doesn't load yet. So, yeah.
Alright. Look at where the water is and go from there. Even though we just worked this out.
That's right.
Yeah, just the top. So let's need to turn it around.
But the inside slide, not the outside slide. Just fine. Yeah, the inside slide, not the outside. And now the tricky that's the problem with the fuller one. There's a big one that's just set up to the 5 metre platform and wiggle around and...
No, I do it. Always fall something on there. You could just about, on a lot of these ones, just lose a little spirit level on here to give you your right.
How's that?
Yeah, angle and that.
You got the anchors all done there?
Yeah, yeah.
What's the matter walking across?
The monkey method. The extra wrap around.
Yeah.
That's,
How many turns do you take around the...
I would take 2 around that 55.
But in fact, is it a case of more turns in the area?
Not necessarily. Just while we're on roads here, let's have a quick discussion on roads. I know we all love to really do Sacco Road. But my personal preference is Hankham. And I'll show you why in a minute. You can actually... Seeing Bungendore is such a rich unit, they'd probably go out and buy one of these special bags that you just unzip. They didn't bite.
What about the stuff bags?
Stuff bags are good. Stuff
Yeah.
bags are excellent.
Because then you can just walk it out as
Stuff
well,
bags
alone.
are probably the best
Yeah.
because you can put the whole bag if you want to. You can attach the bag to the back of your harness so that you're still running.
Got a couple of
free.
old canvas bags which I've put a... which you can put a ring
Old,
in the bottom.
yeah, old backpacks.
Yeah.
Those nice new SES ones.
Well, you put a ring
So
in you
you
the
look-
bottom
you-
and
you
you tie a
look sort of
stopper knot
sexy
through the
walking
ring.
over.
then you can...
Actually, I've never seen one of those SES ones yet.
Have you? Oh,
You
my.
haven't?
Oh, my young fella's got one now. He takes it to when we go for day walks. I'm sure that would upset Division when they
You
find out.
obviously didn't come to the land search course.
You won't drink to do this. You can go over back.
Oh, all the
Yeah.
best people.
Oh, there's also another method where you can wrap around your wrist.
In through there so it doesn't come undone, yeah?
Through here.
Like that, very soon.
Right, and then you can just hang it. See? Right, so you can even just hang it like that off something. Or what I do is I then will do that to feed it into a bag. I then feed it in nose first, or you can drop it in back first and just have that near the top so when you pull it, the whole thing comes out. But where the advantage is in the unwrapping of the thing. You get this
That will now just feed.
and you just pop this on the ground like this, though, and that will now just feed.
They're on their way, I believe.
So you tie your knots in.
I'm over at Bungendore doing her course.
Probably haven't seen one of those.
Okay, not a problem. That's okay.
Double bite,
Okay,
double
bye,
figure eight.
Pain in the ass to pack.
16.
Pain in the ass to pack.
Pain in the arse to pack, that's right. But it is, once it's all bedded in, the advantage is you can really load these up and shock load them and so on. They still come undone. You've reduced one single point of failure and taken it out.
Yep.
Right, made that 2. It passes over the carabiner, so it's a wider thing. And where all the stress
So it's a
tests,
figure of 8 on the bite, tied in the bite.
basically, yes. And most of the failure of these ropes occur here. So all we've done is we've increased the amount of, we've opened up the surface area. So that's not biting against something small, because the whole trick with these things are, they are at their strongest when they're at their straightest. So the more we can straighten them out, the stronger they are. A tensionless hitch, we all know what a tensionless hitch is. Just wrapped around the pole,
And
And then-
carabiner back, yeah.
half hitched back and then carabiner back, is 100% knot. Okay, there is no loss in the strength of the rope through a tensionless hitch, because you just come straight into your anchor point and it starts to go round. There's none of these sitting there. Okay. So that's just,
And the bit that actually takes knot on the very end onto the carabiner isn't actually taking any load.
yes,
The tensionless
that's
hitch,
right.
yeah.
Because you can utilise a tensionless hitch as a belay system as well, if you've got enough rope, or you can add rope in. So then it's just a matter of, you walk that out and that'll just feed. And you don't have somebody down here like we had Ivan a minute ago, untangling the rope. It's opened up, ready to go. And I've gone to do using that with more of my ropes. And you find as your ropes get older, if you keep flattening them, they end up with all these kinks in them. And then you've got to really sort of stretch them hard. What are we waiting on now? We're waiting on monkey number 1.
I'll be back. Take monkey number 1.
I think
It's pretty hard to unwrap the phone.
Right, and normally you just pop through there, and that's your figure 8 on the bite. But instead what you do is you pull that through, and then put that over the top of those 2.
Okay. So that's why you end up with 3. Right.
So you end up with 3 at the bottom, 2 across there, and 2 up here.
Okay, that's different to what I thought you did.
Yeah, I was trying to work.
Because I was thinking that you'd done it actually as a figure of 8 on the bite.
No,
Basically doubled it on the bite.
no. Just dress it around. Like
Yeah, one time ago.
So, no, it's when you're coming through here,
I
then
followed you
they...
when I was doing it, because you cut me too quick and I just lost it.
That's
Come
sorry,
round.
no, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Go through there.
Yeah.
And then it'll
normally
back
you're going to come
over, and then put back through.
normally you go through there,
Okay.
Yeah.
right, to get your figure eight.
Come out and pick up
Okay,
the...
so instead of that, take that tail and put it
Yeah.
over the
I
top
I
of the
remember
box,
now. I'll get home.
and then
As long as you don't drop it over this one by mistake, which what I nearly did.
That's it.
I just got to dress it down. I think got 3.
Yeah, just address it down.
Yeah. Probably a little bit more difficult to dress down than the...
It is. And I mean, it's all you're doing there is just removing some of the, yeah, that pretty much looks like it. Just removing one single, huh?
Does that
Yeah,
not...
and the thing is, when you shock load, like I did a test with this, I had this on one side attached to a vehicle and a normal figure 8 on the other side attached to a vehicle.
Mm.
And then I sort of towed one vehicle with the other,
Mm-hmm.
so really bedded them in very tight.
Yeah.
This one I undid, the other one I cut it off and threw it away
Mm-hmm.
because you just could not undo it. And you know how when you bed down figure 8s on bites, there's bits of rope pop up all over the place. Like you get bits here because of the way the tension comes on, pop up. Well, you just could not get the figure 8 on a bite undone. Whereas this, I just went down, went and undid it.
Yep.
So all it's doing is not putting as much pressure on the rope system, so providing you with a little bit more safety margin.
Now, has it got a name?
I call it double bite, double figure 8. Okay. It is not a figure 9. Some people will try to claim it's a figure 9. It is not a figure 9. Figure 9 is a completely different knot.
There is such thing as a figure 9?
There is, yes. That's a figure 8 on the bite.
Figure of 8.
So instead of doing that, you're there,
Right.
right? What you've got to do now is, that's why you've got to give yourself a lot of room.
You put a bite through
You
the...
pull that and then put the bite over the top of all of that.
Oh, right.
Okay?
And is it an approved knot?
Well, the guys that I've shown it to state thought it was really wonderful and sexy. So there's no problems there.
So
And-
if I went back to Yass and had a big argument with a certain SG2,
And so you can turn round. Huh? Well, what is an approved knot?
the ones in the book,
Let's me the approved knot.
The ones in the book.
Which book? The EMA manual?
yeah.
The roping manual? The general rescue manual?
Well, the EMA and the general...
There's only one manual that is directed to roping, and that's the EMA vertical rescue manual. And there's errors in that book. That's why they've
No,
got to rewrite.
I can see the advantage. Actually, I can't see that it'd be
No, before
any
you...
different.
But, yeah, that's it. Now you bring the loop over on itself.
Look at that, Greg.
Slow the whole thing down. Yeah, well this particular knot removes that not being a weak point.
What do you call it?
Double bite, double figure 8.
But that's like any skill, isn't it? You don't use them, you lose it.
That's not a black diamond, is it? Very close to a black diamond. Almost a copy of a black diamond.
Almost like what they had. You find, say that you go round that, but that is you go round that whole strap, pull that whole strap, and then that just becomes a guide for that when it comes back.
Off ladder.
Go.
is half again, that's fine. I've got general rescue.
We go blocks of wood in the gunner? No, not yet. We'll need to pass it up. Grab a piece of 32 in a minute. Is somebody over the other side to catch it?
Probably not.
Let this be a reminder to you all that this organization will not tolerate failure.
Oops! I did it again, baby.
Yeah!
What led you through the hopelessly tangled underbrush of private security organizations to our door? Stellar word of mouth? Our fine client roster? Those flyers we put up in that public urinal?